Welcome to the Photo Banter podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gagne, and on today's podcast, I speak with photographer Michael Cevoli. Michael Cevoli has worked with clients such as Filson, Hill Holiday, and Angler's Journal, to name a few. In this interview, I speak to Michael about his early days of photography, attending the Rhode Island School of Design to get his MFA in photography, and some of his early assignments. Michael has spent years documenting the commercial fishing industry all over New England, giving an incredible glimpse into the people and all the hard work that goes into commercial fishing. Michael is someone whose work I've admired for a long time for his ability to tell stories and his incredible portraits, so I was really pumped to get a chance to speak with him about his journey with photography. So I hope you enjoy, and thanks so much for listening. All right. I now welcome on Michael Cevoli, my photo colleague, friend. Psyched to have you on, man. Long time coming. How's it going, dude? It's been a crazy year for anybody in this world, but how you hanging in there, man?
Hanging in there, man. You know, it's been a tough year. It's first start was real slow on freelance.
Yep.
Shit's picking back up though.
Yeah, you've been shooting
like some stuff. Privately. I took a teaching job, and freelance is picking back up. As of a month ago. So things are going back to normal, at least for the time being.
Yeah. I always like looking at your work and shit, man. Like I've told you this before, I love your work. Anybody looks at his website, it's just like super personal. Like you're always shooting. It seems like it's just like pretty inspiring. Like even if you don't got a job, it seems like you're always kind of out there doing it pretty much.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's funny, I love photography. I always have since I was a kid. If I'm not shooting enough film or enough fucking, files, I start having dreams that I'm not doing enough work, and I'm seeing these pictures in my head that I want to be photographing. Yeah. And that's like, I'm not doing enough work. Got to go take some pictures,
I feel like
for a ride.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I kind of get like in a bad mood, like when I haven't been shooting stuff that like that I'm proud of. Like obviously, because the game, like sometimes there's jobs and there's still great jobs, but they're not like artistically like satisfying in a sense. So it's like if I'm not shooting stuff, I'm like, damn, man, I'm fucking up. And and as this year's been weird, I've been talking to people is like because with the pandemic, I mean, I shoot a lot of portraits, you shoot a lot of portraits, and it's just been kind of a weird thing to navigate because it's like before I would just be like work on personal projects, go shoot in people's houses or different locations, and now it's like this weird dance of like, should I be doing it? Should I not be doing it? I guess like, have you been shooting a lot of portraits or how during this time? Or
no, man, not at all. And I've told you before, like I've got this nonprofit thing on the side outside of like work.
Yep.
And it's all portrait work. We can't photograph anybody.
Yep.
We're just like stuck like in this deadlock of like waiting to get back to work.
Yep.
It's so frustrating. Like just being out there and like photographing people, which you love doing, I love doing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even go see my friends. It's like, it's like simple like that. But yeah, it's real tough, man. It's been a very, very trying 8 months, as a photographer. Especially as a portrait photographer.
No doubt. I've just been trying to stay patient and like try to think of some other stuff to shoot, I guess, on the side, because like for so long it was just like portrait, which I love the interaction, man. It's just the people and the stories. So now it's just like a new way of kind of navigating photography. But I was really excited to do this, man, because I've known you probably for almost 10 years now. The first time I ever met you, it was me, you, Jesse Burke. We got beers. I think it was like I kind of only had been out of college like maybe a year or two, and we met in Providence, Rhode Island. And I mean, I've been following your work for years, but there's a ton of stuff I don't know about you, so I was excited to talk to you.
I remember that night, man. You were assistant Jesse.
Yep.
You met in that bar room, Point Tavern down at Fox Point.
Yep.
At that point, man, I've been living in Fox Point since a teenager. That place used to be such a dive. And it turned into, what it still is right now. Not saying nothing bad about it, but I remember that night, man. Yep.
Yeah, it was a good time. But like, did you? Because I didn't even know. Did you grow up in Rhode Island, and like, how do you kind of?
I did, man. I grew up like right where you live. I was born in Walpole.
Okay, Massachusetts for people listening.
That's folks you guys don't know.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are both from Boston. My mom's from High Park, my dad's from High Park.
Yep.
They got married, 3 towns south to Walpole, then 1 town over. I lived there till I was 18. Then I moved to Providence at 18.
Mm. And like, how did you kind of get into photography? Like, were you kind of doing that early on, or like when did you kind of first pick up a camera?
Yeah. My dad was an art director when I was a kid, and I remember we went on a shoot with him down into Cayman Islands.
Wow.
My dad, the photographer, the assistants, myself, I was maybe like 13, 14. We blew off for the afternoon, got on a catamaran, went out to sea, flipped the damn boat over, got picked up by jet ski rescue, got back to shore, and my mom, to calm me down, was like, here's a camera. It was an old Nikon FM2 that I still have. And she's like, just go take pictures, calm down, calm down, calm down. And ever since then, man, that's all I've been doing.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. That's cool to see, kind of hear your dad was kind of into the creative kind of side of things. Like, what kind of stuff was he working on as like an art director? What kind of stuff was he doing?
He was like, chief creative at Hill Holiday for like 30 fucking years.
Oh shit, Hill Hot, damn!
Yeah,
I didn't realize that. That's fucking awesome, man.
Yeah,
So he was always pretty like supportive of your like creative endeavors and stuff.
Absolutely. He told me, again, like they grew up in the city. Both my parents said, if you want to be a garbage man, be a garbage man. Just be the best one you can be.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager, my first job ever was, working maintenance at a housing project. I worked for carpenters, I worked for painters, did roofing, I do mechanic work even still.
Yeah.
So I always did like a lot of, trade work, but loved photography. And, even now at 38 years old, I still like do a split of the both, just kind of keep my mind right. But yeah, man, they were very, very supportive. Whatever I wanted to go become, just go do it.
Yeah,
Don't
definitely.
slap at it.
That's awesome, man. Like, I didn't realize that until I got older, like how grateful I was to have like parents that were like supportive of like what you want to do. Cause like, as you know, man, going down the track of like a creative career, it's like it's wild ride, man.
It is, man. Yeah, it really is. It's definitely feast or famine,
Yeah.
Especially this day and age.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Yeah. So yeah, family was always very, very supportive. And, my mom, years, my sister and I were born, she, stayed at home, raised us, was very creative with us. And then, her retirement job that she took for, 21 goddamn years was to be a high school art teacher.
Wow.
So, like, art was always a big part of our family.
That's awesome, man. That's super cool. And like, when did you kind of start thinking you wanted to pursue it as a career? Because like obviously you started off this kind of fun, and I think you end up going to school for photography, I believe.
I did, yeah, twice, man. I got suckered in twice. I went to RISD for undergrad, and then years later went and got a grad degree, also from RISD. I knew pretty early on that I wanted to, really stick it to being a photographer if I could make it happen. It's the thing, like the language, the interaction with people. It's just the thing that makes like the most sense to me.
Yeah. And when you were going to RISD, like, do you kind of have an idea in your mind, like what type of work you wanted to do? Because like looking at your work now, like obviously you shoot editorial, shoot commercial, and then kind of like fine art stuff for yourself. But like when you're first starting off at RISD, like what kind of stuff were you doing, I guess?
I was doing all street photography. I grew up looking at that kind of stuff, love that kind of stuff, love like, for me, the best part of being a photographer is like meeting people, like you were saying, being out in the real world, and then going through RISD, none of my roommates were, photographers, they were painting guys, sculpture guys, guys who were like living in a studio and like, in my opinion, no idea what the hell was going on in the real goddamn world. So, doing street photography and like doing, in-depth projects of like human interaction. You really need to know how to talk to people as a photographer and like make people comfortable immediately to get the shots that you need. And it's just, that in my opinion, but early on I was like street photography. That's what I was into.
Who were kind of some of your favorite street photographers? Do you remember some kind of
all the classics, man, Robert Frank and, Bresson. I love Louis Stettner. God,
Winogrand,
yeah, all of them, man.
Winogrand is interesting because now he's become like a really like cult hero. Like I've seen like so much of his work nowadays. I see it reposted on Instagram and online. And it's really, I mean, he's always been a legend for sure, but like I've seen in the last few years, like I see so many people, like younger kids, getting into photography, and they're like fucking Winter Grand.
And some of his stuff, like to me, it's like I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's not as good as the other stuff, but like some of it, I can just like fucking blow right over. And so much of it is just like awesome. Just kind of like really depends on where he was in his career. But people like Eugene Richards were like huge to me, like Dorchester days. That's where my family was from. Like there's photographs in that book of actually like my great aunt is in that book.
Oh, really?
There's the corner of Sudan and Sydney Street is photographed. All those 3-deckers. Like that's where my parents lived, man. Like that was like, holy shit, man. This guy came from this neighborhood. I didn't grow up there, but like we were there all the goddamn time. It's like, holy shit, man. Like this is cool. This is cool.
Yeah, I was just remember that one iconic is like isn't it like a kid like taking his bike off like a little jump ramp or something? I think in the book
with like the really awful slogan on the brick wall.
Yeah. I
always Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, man. I guess like going to RISD, like you said, you're doing the street photography and stuff. Like, how is the program there? Because it's like such a legendary school. Like looking back on it, do you feel like it was kind of like a useful experience and kind of
it was awesome, and I loved my undergrad time there. The other students were fantastic. Everyone was so motivated. Faculty was just very supportive of what kind of photography you want to be doing. Because again, I mean that was essentially a fine art program. So if you want to do street photography, you could. If you want to do abstract, postmodern, whatever, you could do all of it. And I'm saying at this point, I graduated undergrad 16, 17 years ago. It was a very different type of program than when I graduated with a master's degree. I don't know how far we want to get into that. I don't know who's listening.
No, I was going to talk to you about it because like, I didn't get my master's, but like what kind of made you want to go back to school and get your like master's in photography? Because I think at that point you were already working like commercially and stuff a little bit, I think, right?
I was, between my undergrad and my grad, I was teaching high school. I was assisting, and I was doing union painting for Painters Allied Trades out of Rosendale, and like that was cool. I always wanted to teach at the college level, so I figured if I can get in, I'll get in. If I can't get in, I'll just keep plugging away. Things are going all right. I did get in and loved it. Again, it was very, very different than my undergrad experience. Not in a bad way, just very different. And when I got out, I was teaching college.
Because like when you're going to school for getting a master's in photography, what is it a lot more like structured or like not so much, or like what's kind of the goal, I guess? Because with like getting a master's, I guess.
Again, I mean, very different than undergrad. People were seemingly a lot more motivated in my undergrad experience.
More motivated in undergrad.
Yeah, man.
Interesting.
Again, I don't want to throw anybody on the bus, but
no.
Student, man, like you'd have kids, we had a critique every other week. It was an hour-long critique for what we did in a 2-week period. There's no excuse to bring like 3 new photographs to fucking class and make all of us spend 3 hours talking about 3 pictures that have like nothing to do with the other ones. It was just seemingly a lack of motivation, to be honest with you.
No, I get it.
When I went to grad school, and to be fair, the department was going through a lot of growing pains.
Yeah.
And it was kind of figuring out if it was going to stay a photo department, a video department, or a digital media department. And, I was there 07, 09, and it was very in flux.
Yeah, that's kind of how my school was at RIT. Like the last year I was there, that's kind of when some like the DSLR cameras started coming out, and it was the same thing. There was like this rush because like remember when like the first 5D Mark II came out, and everyone was like, we can shoot 1080 HD video, and every photographer needs to shoot video. So then like the school was like same thing. They're like, oh, we need to create this program where it's like mixed media, and we're gonna, which I mean, nothing against it, but it was just kind of interesting to see.
It was a tough thing. Again, someone coming from like street photography, trained in film, going through undergrad, like I was a purist. I know like when I went used to like printing in the dark room, and the people who I studied, I would print, a neg carrier border. I used to get shit on for printing a neg carrier border because of like weird art theory of being like this weird masculinity bullshit kind of. Come on, man! Like I'm just showing I composed an actual photograph.
The file down negative carrier is the.
Yeah. Give me a break.
So when you were shooting street photography, was it all black and white pretty much for you?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I know you mentioned you said you always knew you wanted to get into teaching. Like, what kind of attracted you to that? Like, how did you kind of even think to become a teacher, I guess?
I think, having a mother who was a teacher for her entire career, who's now 70 and just retired, but also, the love of the medium, it's like, as a teacher, it's really pretty awesome to teach people what you love, and maybe some of them enjoy it. Yeah. When I have especially my high school students, I tell them, like, you might not be good at art, you might be awful at photography. I don't really care. Yeah. The whole point of the class is, whether you become a lawyer, a doctor, whatever, you might look at things a little bit differently in your life, and wrap your head around them, and not just accept things at face value, and use your own brain to make conclusions, whether, again, you're a lawyer, doctor, garbage man, carpenter, and I think that's like the responsibility of a teacher.
And when you say you're teaching high school, was it just photography, or are you teaching kind of general arts, like pretty much? Or
after I finished my undergrad, I was teaching just photo. Right now I'm teaching general fine arts.
Oh, that's awesome. So you kind of teach like the history of all the fine arts and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. And they really brushed me up on, my charcoal drawing and all that shit.
Dude, I was so bad.
Done that shit in 20 years.
I tell this all the time, because like when I was going to photo school at RIT, there was like a required drawing class, and dude, my fucking handwriting is terrible. It looks like a little kid's, and I was so bad at the drawing class. I think the teacher thought I didn't give a shit, but it's like my mind doesn't work that way. Like, I don't know how people do it, but it is. I'm glad I went through that process, because I think you still do learn kind of seeing different mediums and stuff,
What year did you finish RIT?
2008.
2008. Oh, man. Did you overlap with a kid named Chris Scully?
Nah, I don't think so. Yeah, there's so many kids there, because they had like 3 different programs. They had like fine art, PJ, and then I was like in the quote unquote advertising.
Yeah.
It was funny because they called it advertising, but it was actually the most like, it was the most lenient of all the things, because they kind of really let you shoot whatever you wanted. So it was just funny how they had these like different silos. They called them these.
Yeah, that's pretty weird, huh?
Yeah. No, but I loved RIT, and anytime I get a chance to go back, man, I jump at it, because it's like as you know, like once you get out of school, you're kind of just out there on your own, and you're not really talking to, you're not in that like environment of like talking to people like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And shit like that. And I miss those days, man.
That's a hell of a school too, man. RIT's, that's awesome.
Yeah. Because where are you teaching now?
I don't know if I should say on.
Okay, no worries.
Just outside of Boston, up in Needham.
That's awesome, man. And I know, talking to you, you've been doing with COVID and stuff, I think half of it's like online and half of it's in person. Like, how's that kind of been? Because talking to some other teacher friends of mine, it seems like quite the challenge, kind of trying to teach someone over.
It's tricky, man. It's it's a lot more work in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like as an art teacher, if I'm in class with them, I can do the demos, show you what we're doing. That kills half the class.
Yeah.
But if I'm remote, I have to do everything at home to, hold up on the screen and like send in through, a goddamn Dell computer, which I still have no idea how to use.
Yeah, I know.
And, my remote days, I'm still like on call with them for the entire class time. But it's challenging. It's, we're a month and a half in, I guess, it's going pretty smooth.
That's good. Yeah, because I was thinking about that, because a lot of like, at least the technical side of photography, I guess, is like you need to like touch the stuff and figure out how to like use this camera and use this lens. So it's like, but I guess it's gonna make people creative. You got to figure it out in these weird times. It's
absolutely.
So the way I learned about your work is because we both kind of started shooting for Rhode Island Monthly magazine, our regional magazine, which I love, and kind of missing shooting for right now. But did you kind of always know you wanted to shoot editorial, and like, do you kind of remember some of your first editorial clients and assignments or anything like that?
Oh man, I'll tell you right now, my first editorial client was actually Rhode Island Monthly, and man, I was like so broke at the time. I didn't even have a camera, and I got a contract in from an art director, like, I was assisting Mike, like, we want you to shoot this. I was like, oh, cool, man, I'll take the contract. I'm sitting there like, shit, man, I don't have a camera. Like, I got a Hasselblad, I got a 4x5. You need stuff in like 2 days. I'd like beg, borrow, and steal to get like an old, like, I think it was a 20D,
Okay.
like seriously, like that's going to go to press.
It's like 4
And the first
megapixels.
job I got from them was to go photograph the goddamn landfill. So
Okay.
it's like, all right, send me to the dump, cool.
Hey, man, everybody starts from the bottom, I guess.
Absolutely. But it was a great shoot. I still love those images. And then, after that, they ended up doing like a bunch of like commercial fishing stories. And I don't know, like nobody else wanted to go out to sea. So I took the contracts, and that turned into like a whole weird side set of my, my income, my career, what I do. I still do a lot of work in the commercial fishing industry.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that because like your work is incredible. You spent years documenting all these fishermen and like boat builders and this kind of the whole like ecosystem around commercial fishing. Like how did you get into that? Do you have like you said, you kind of shot some stuff, or was there like family members that worked in that industry, or how did you kind of get into that?
It's kind of like twofold. So like, my first contract with Rhode Island Monthly was after grad school. When I was in grad school, I took a class from a Alaskan crab fisherman named John Jensen. That was like the kind of cool thing about RISD. Like you get these weird side classes. And John Jensen, he was just like a normal blue collar guy. The first day of class, he showed up with a survival suit, like, the ones you're going to jump into in 30 seconds. He threw it at like 3 or 4 kids, like, you'd be dead, you'd be dead, you'd be dead. I'm a crab fisherman. I lost a boat. Him and I hit it off immediately. I ended up roofing his house, building a deck. We went out on a fishing job together. I always good on a boat. And, he got me a residency at the New Bedford Whaling Museum photographing the fishing industry.
Oh, I've been to that museum. I actually did an assignment there. That's a really cool museum.
Great museum. And like the secret place about that is like block over, they have this giant archive in an old bank vault. So right after graduation, I started shooting the fishing industry through him, having some experience on boats. And then, Rhode Island Monthly knew I didn't mind being out at sea. They gave me contracts that turned into other contracts, into national contracts, into, shooting for fish houses, all up and down the East Coast.
Wow, that's amazing. And like, yeah, like, so like going out in there and working on a fishing boat, like, what kind of stuff were you guys fishing for? And like, do you remember those first? Because like some guys, like I had some friends who worked in that industry, and some guys will just kind of go out for the day, and then there's the other guys that go out for like weeks, months at a time. Sometimes, like,
yeah. It's a funny, interesting. The first stuff I was shooting on that project was in the processing plants and in New Bedford. So like, whoever's listening, New Bedford port. It's the largest port in North America as far as dollar amounts.
Mm-hmm.
I would stay up late, get up extra early to get down to the docks to blend in a little bit better. I'll tell you right now, man, the amount of heroin I was offered on those docks trying to meet contacts to take photographs, which is mind blowing.
Whoa.
I remember shooting in one of the processing houses, and we got pulled off the chute because there was a dead body bobbing up and down underneath the pylons. So kind of stuck through all that shit, made a really nice portfolio, in my opinion, and then started going out to sea, doing day boat work most.
That's cool. And like, what was kind of the initial reaction? Like you said, you kind of got there early and tried to blend in with people, like, because as you know, like being a documentary photographer, it kind of takes a while to build that relationship with people. And these guys, like, that's like a hard fucking job working in commercial fishing, man. I don't know much harder.
And, they're not very trusting either, and it's a very itinerant workforce, especially as a deckhand. So like if you have to be there at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'd get up at 2:33. I'd look a little bit more ragged. I'd still drive a 20-year-old pickup truck. I kind of fit right in there. I'm covered in tattoos. I look like everybody else on the dock.
Yep.
And then, once people kind of realize, like, all right, this guy's not a deckhand. He's got a camera. He's all right. He's not ratting anybody out. You start taking pictures.
That's awesome. And like, obviously you've been shooting that for years. Like, do you kind of have like a goal for that type of work? Like is there, because this is like the one thing I struggle with is like trying to find your voice as a photographer, be it like aesthetically or like what you're shooting, and trying to have like cohesive body of work. Like, how do you kind of view that work? And like, has it kind of evolved since you started shooting it, I guess?
It's really tough to say. I mean, commercial fishing is such a romanticized industry, for people who don't have experience with it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to, I mean, it is beautiful to be out at sea. It's also really goddamn dangerous. So like, what is like how do you kind of like split that difference of, showing the reality of how gritty it is, but still showing how pretty it is without, making it kind of one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first stuff I was shooting as, a residency at a museum, I kind of had like full creative control to make it artistic, make it gritty, whatever I wanted to do. And then as it became, an editorial project and then a commercial project for certain clients, they kind of guided what they wanted to see, if that makes sense. I mean, it's still something I love doing. Anytime I get a chance to jump on a fishing boat, even years later, like I'm out. I love doing it.
What's like the longest you've gone out on a boat with like a fishing crew?
I've never gone like for weeks at a time. I've done like a full day. That's enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, it's wild because like I remember going to the skate park in Taunton, Mass. Actually, it's still there. It's called Skater Edge, and one of the kids, this is like 10 years back. He was probably like 20 years old or something, and he kind of got his first job. And he was working at probably like New Bedford area, like something like that, where it was. And I remember they went out, and it was one of these things where they went out for weeks, and he came back. I forget what time of year it was, but he came back with like a big check. He got like $5,000 or something, and he was so ecstatic. But then it was just like they went back another time, that they don't make as much because they didn't catch as much. So that's like people probably don't realize that when they go to the grocery store and buy a fish, like
right,
these guys can bust their ass, but then some make no money.
Right. Or be out there for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, Yeah.
That's
a very, very tough job. So yeah, that was like the first like real project that we're finishing up school that kind of got me into, photographing the dump, and then, starting an editorial career. And, it was a good start, man. And again, I still enjoy doing that. And then, I photograph like other side sets of fishing. I photograph sometimes for Filson, for English.
That's awesome. Man, I didn't realize you shot for them. That's amazing.
Yeah, man. They're great. They send you a bunch of gear and, go out and, make up the money elsewhere. But, they sent me out to Wyoming, and I ended up just like fly fishing in these canyons up through Wyoming, up into Montana for, a week and a half, living out of a pickup truck. And
wow. And for people listening, like, like how does like a relationship that start? Like, were you actively kind of like marketing your work to Filson, or did they kind of find you?
Well, that was like the really cool thing about Instagram. Like years ago, you could actually like direct market.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more difficult now, and that's actually how I, started selling them stock pictures, was through Instagram, and then building a rapport with the art director at the time, and then pitching a shoot, getting hired to do the shoot, then resell that shoot to somebody else. That route.
That's amazing. Yeah. Is that kind of what's kind of your approach these days? Obviously, because like Instagram's so like oversaturated now. It's really hard to kind of get your name out there. I guess like when you're kind of trying to get your work out there to clients and stuff, what's worked for you, and like I guess overall, what have you kind of been doing? I guess
it's kind of like the old school way of like directly harassing them and calling them to get a meeting. To be honest, emailing and calling and getting a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been tough, man. It's been tough the last couple of years.
Yeah, and right now is the hardest because it's like you can't really go meet people in person. It's so it's like just trying to find a way to like still stay in the loop and stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough. I did all these yesterday and the day before. I did online portfolio reviews where you like meet with magazines and stuff, which is like it's like a gamble because you pay money and you don't know if you're gonna get any work. But I gave that a try, so see how it goes.
How'd you find that to be?
It was cool. Like, I don't know. Have you ever done one of those things before? I've done one of them before, and I've gotten work. That's how I got some work with Bloomberg and a couple other clients. And but it's an investment. But it worked pretty good. Like, it was run by the SPD. It's like Society of Publishers and Design. It's like a trade organization, and it was super smooth. Like, you just log in, and then you meet with like a different editor from magazines, and
Nice.
it got good feedback.
Good.
But I don't know. And going off the fishing stuff, one of my
Yeah.
favorite pictures on your website is the boat builders, man. Like that's just such an interesting aspect. I was just kind of curious, like photographing that, like, is that like how long does it take to build one of those things? And like where do they even build those at? Like,
You got to come visit, man. So like that factory is like 3 blocks that way from my house. And, I can hear those guys doing the test runs when they put the boats in the water. I know a lot of guys that work down at the yard. So when I moved to where I live now, 8 years ago, that became a personal project.
yeah.
And then, excuse me, I started selling the pictures back to the boat company and then getting hired to shoot boats being built from beam to end of construction.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long is that process? Because some of those boats you were like photographing, they were like massive
Yeah,
boats.
man, they're big, man. Yeah, they're big. They're generally done within a year to 2 years.
Yeah.
They got a pretty big crew. They're two to three shifts per day at that factory, and it's an old school boat shop, man. It's all American-made materials, and it's crazy, man. Like they have no heat in that factory. Like to heat the factory in the winter, it's a dirt floor. They just burn like 50-gallon drums full of trash.
Holy shit.
I remember, I don't know if you know that shot of like the side of the boat. It's maybe 3 stories, and I'm up in the middle story. I'm taking that picture, and the handrail just like fell right off.
Yeah, let me pull it up and people can see it. I'll pull your website up here. I think some of the boat stuff. I think it's under the coastal stuff.
Yeah, it
Here.
should be in the coastal, and then the
So,
second gallery.
let's see. There's a bunch of amazing stuff in here. It's like
This
this
is the
stuff.
official one, Alex. I think it's the other gallery in the coastal.
No worries. Yeah, so like this stuff right here, I'll go to the other things. So is this like the processing plant? So once they catch it, it comes into like these warehouses, and then other guys just process it.
And that's all film too.
Wow.
That was like the last like real big film project I shot.
So do like the fishermen, the guys that are out on the boat, are they the ones who once they get off the boat come in and they also work in the processing, or is it like a separate?
So the deckhands, they just go out to sea, they do all that work, and then the guys who do the offloading, that's a union. That's called the lumpers.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's all sectioned out.
Wow.
Yeah, that boat building stuff is that's the gallery to the south of this one.
And are like most of these like guys, the boat captains here, like you're photographing here, are they basically just kind of independent like contractors? They kind of got their
Yep.
own boat and run their own shop pretty much.
Yep.
Wow. So this is like, listen, what's this right here we're looking at?
These are 2 giant locomotive engines running a ship.
Oh, so this is a massive ship right here.
Yep.
Wow. What the heck is this right here?
That is a container ship on Christmas Eve of one year.
Damn. Yeah,
Yep.
let me go back to the let's see, close up this one. This is
Yeah,
the
that
boat
one.
build.
Yeah, these are my neighbors.
So this is all like steel. Taking a second to load here. Maybe my internet's slow or something. I'll let it load. You know, one thing I was kind of interested in talking to you about, I know we kind of went back and forth with it a little bit. You know, in these crazy times we're living in, people are scared of getting this virus. People
Yep.
are dying and things like that. It's a scary time for a lot of people that have existing health conditions and whatnot, and for anybody really. And I know yourself, about I think 5-6 years ago, you had your own health issue. You got cancer,
Yeah.
and we talked about it a little bit. I was just kind of curious, kind of how you kind of found out, and like what you kind of the overall experience, like how your mindset was going through that, I guess, because like looking at the photos on Instagram, you're very public about it, like posting the pictures of you in the hospital and stuff. Maybe you could
Yeah, so we're coming up on 5 years of diagnosis in about a month and a half. I didn't know I had it, man. There's like no history of cancer in my family. I was on a job down in Manhattan, wasn't feeling that good. It was November of that year. Just kind of tired, was coughing a lot. Came home, just like tanked health wise, like no energy, nothing like that.
Yeah.
I went to the doctor. They couldn't find shit. Finally got fed up with going to Rhode Island doctors, drove up to Boston, where I grew up, and found out I had a grapefruit sized tumor, and I was, stage 3, stage 4 of lymphoma.
Holy cow.
and then was not expected to live. I spent a month in an ICU. I had 5 surgeries in that month just to stabilize me. And it was literally, my vitals were taken every 2 hours for 19, 21 days, whatever it was. And then they kind of sent you on your way. All right, you're starting chemo. You're going to go, good 6 months before we know if it's working or not. And hopefully.
Damn. So you had to go 6 months for chemo.
Yeah, 6 months every 12 to 14 days. And I did 105 shots of radiation after that, once I got stabilized with one more surgery. So, that was like it was a real mind fuck. I was 33 years old at the time, again, with no history of cancer in my family. Career was like, really going up.
Yeah.
And that just, really pulled the bottom out at that time. But yeah, man, it was terrifying. I was a healthy young guy. The kind of cancer I had was super, super, super rare.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it really sucked. So, I hear about, Corona. It's super, super scary. Like, I don't want to get Corona.
No.
I'm prone to lung issues now because of what I went through and where my stuff manifested. But dude, quarantining right now to get paid to stay home really ain't that bad compared to, wondering if you're dying every day. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
I can only imagine, man, because I remember you posting those pictures and I was just like, because any person, you kind of hear about those stories and until it affects you, you don't really understand the full scope of like what the reality is. It's like,
yeah. At my age, when I had it, just probably like you and anybody else listening, I knew people who had gone through that. But until you have firsthand experience, like you really don't know what that person's going through. You can sympathize with it. But man, it's a whole different bear when it's like, that's your life that you might lose every single day.
Yeah, man, it's powerful. I think it was great that you shared those pictures and kind of people got to see where you're going through, and you're very open, man. A lot of respect for doing that,
Thank
man.
you. Yeah, thank you.
I know you ended up starting. I think you mentioned at the beginning you started this nonprofit called Gilded Heart of Healing.
So I was asked to become a part of that project.
Yeah.
I was initially photographed for it by Bob Packard, who was a photographer that I used to assist. Bob's an awesome photographer. He ended up taking a job at the what the hell's that museum up in Salem there?
Oh, I know exactly what it's like. All photography.
It's not Griffin. It's I don't know, something up on the North Shore. So he ended up stepping away and recommended that I become the photographer in his place. And so yeah, we've been working on that the last couple of years. Finally got our 501c3 status, and
and for people listening, like, what's the Gilded Heart of Healing? Like, what's the goal? I know it's like photography based, and is it all people that had cancer, or is it just different people?
It's a trauma project. So we photographed people who survived 5-6 gunshots and still have bullets like lodged in their heads, amputees, burn victims, cancer survivors, any kind of trauma, mental health traumas. And the goal of the project is to just kind of like essentially build a database for people to kind of understand that they're not alone, get resources, tie into hospital groups, stuff like that.
Yeah, because I can only imagine, like, people dealing with different health things. I'm sure when you're cancer, you feel lost. Like, I'm sure all your friends, that your family, they love you, obviously, and it's like, are you okay? I would imagine it's a lot of that, but it's like, it's got to be comforting for some of these people to have like relate to somebody.
You're exactly right, and that's something that I had some really good nurses who told me that. It's like like you're on your own in a lot of ways right now. Your family's your family; they're always going to help you, but you're in your own head by yourself. And something that I found helpful, after I finished up all my treatment, was finding a group of people. Unfortunately, I already knew them who had gone through similar experiences to sit around and like bullshit with, or not talk about anything with. My friend Stanley Ferreira, he lives here in town. He was on the same cancer ward that I was years before me, and he was telling me like, dude, it was a fucking shithole. I was there right when it opened, and the sprinklers went off, and I couldn't call my nurse, so I'm like climbing out of fucking bed, pulling my tubes off to try to find help. Like those are the kind of stories like, shit, man, I was on the same floor. Like, I get it. Did you go to the nurse's station? Did you hit the fucking button over by the top left of the door? Yeah, fuck you, I already did. Come on. You're right, man. So yeah, like finding a group is very helpful. But so the whole point of this project is to kind of provide that kind of support for people who maybe don't have it, maybe are like starting to get into a health situation, or a family member is, to find a resource.
And where are you guys kind of finding people? Because you photograph some really interesting stories. I'll link to Instagram. People can go check it out. But where are you kind of finding the subjects and things like that, I guess?
We get a lot of submissions, and then a lot of word of mouth stuff. And unfortunately, how common these things are, we all know people like this.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, before you link to that, we are going to relaunch our site and Instagram and all that shit. So hold off on doing that for right now.
Yeah, no problem, man. Once it gets updated, I'll link it and people can go check it out for sure, man. Because I know I've looked at it. It's really, you guys have done some really amazing photographs, and it's not. I don't think it's just you photographing. You partner with some other artists and stuff too, I think.
Yep, we have. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think I got the boat thing to pop up here so I can show the this was like my favorite stuff on your website here. The
the old aluminum boats. Yep.
So are most of these guys, because I think there's like schools just to learn how to go be a boat builder and stuff. I think there's one in Massachusetts. So this is like a real niche like skill to be able to do this, it seems like.
Yeah, so these guys are like, they're technically ship fitters. A lot of these old timers, I call them old timers, are 56 years old. They were trained at this factory. A lot of these guys have worked there since they were in high school or right after. It's a very funny little factory in my neighborhood.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, this one here on the left, if you go back one, Alex,
yeah,
that was the one where the handrail fell right off as I was taking the picture. It's like, shit, man, don't fall down that hole.
Holy shit. Yeah, man, because these buildings, I mean, these ships, some from like 100 feet off the ground, pretty much. They're massive.
They're pretty big boats.
This is nuts. So you kind of, for a lot of this stuff, is it you're just kind of showing up at these places and it's kind of spending some time there and just kind of see what happens, or sometimes you setting up portraits, or what's kind of been this?
None of it is really set up. Like this guy Popeye, who I've photographed a few times. He's just a character. He knows he's a character. The goddamn guy looks like the Gordon's fisherman walking around. He knows he's photogenic. So you build a good rapport with him. I know his kid, through the neighborhood, so he's okay being photographed. I know they have press through there every now and again, and the portraits, they look a little bit different, but
I was always curious to ask you, like, because I've looked at your work for years, like, how do you kind of approach like portrait assignments for like editorial? Are you someone that works quick, or do you kind of take your time, or like how do you kind of navigate? Like,
it really depends on the subject.
Yeah.
Sometimes things work really quickly. If it's a longer, more involved story, sometimes I won't even bring a camera the first time, or rather I won't bring the camera out the first time. It's handy if they're cool with being photographed. Some stuff takes a lot of time to really get into.
Yeah.
And longer term stories, they involve a lot of trust. They need to know who you are, who where is this going? So it just really matters on the person. Like this guy right here, he's actually a Boston fireman. My grandfather was a Boston fireman. They worked on the same boat. So he got me on the boat and it's like, all right, cool, man. You're part of the fire department family. You're on.
Wow. And that thing, didn't you recently do, like within the last year, you did like something with firefighters for Rhode Island Monthly. There was some stuff.
Yeah. Yep. It was a PTSD story related to the station nightclub fire.
Wow, that's intense. Yeah, this stuff is great, man. And is this something are you continuing shooting the fishing stuff? Is it something you think you're?
I am. Yeah. It's again, I get a call to go on a boat. I go all the time. It's funny, man. Like, spending so much time on them over 10, 12 years. Sometimes you go as a photographer, you end up working as a deckhand. You end up working the winch. Hey, get up on the top, man. Make sure I'm not hitting anything in the fog.
Well, that's probably, I would imagine that's how you really earn your respect when you got their back, and it's like you're not just there to like take pictures and stuff. I would imagine.
Right. I'll tell you, some of the boats you come home on, like you're catching the fish, you're filleting them right on the deck and cooking them on the exhaust stack and eating on the way home.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was curious. Like, I wonder if these guys get sick of eating fish after a while, because it's like, like any job you have, like it's like if you work at a bar, you don't want to hang out at the bar you work at. You're like, I gotta get the fuck out of here.
I know.
Yeah, this is awesome, man. I guess like I mean, what's next for you, man? Like, what's got you excited photographically? Obviously, it's kind of a weird time for photography and everything, but what anything is kind of on your docket or anything you're working on now? Or
I just picked up a big freelance job that I was telling you about the other day. I can't get too much into it, but it's a very nice project, split between doing like archiving work for this client and then, photographing in Connecticut and upstate New York for him as well. After, being essentially shut down on editorial work since March, I'm very happy to be back at work with something that's, interesting and very involved in a long-term project.
yeah,
As far as like personal work goes, man, again, it's been like really hard to find stuff to do.
yeah,
Not for lack of trying, but for lack of having people into my house, into my home studio to photograph.
yep.
People wanting to really be around folks. So I'm
Yeah,
waiting for that to break, man.
me too. Like, I know a lot of people doing like virtual shoots and stuff, but I'm just gonna wait it out. Like, I just don't. I- like for me, like all my pictures that I really enjoy, it's because you can connect with the person.
Absolutely,
And
man.
it's like
Like,
so.
that's the best part of being a photographer, man. Is like connecting with the person.
Yeah,
So many people I've photographed over the years, like they become like lifelong friends. Like
yeah,
that's the best part about it,
yeah, for
Like we
sure.
met 12 years ago as photographers.
Yeah,
Now we're talking right now in my weird house in Ward, and you and Frank.
I'm in Holliston now. I got a little space up here now. What happened?
Natural thing about
What froze there?
the medium, like you really make strong connections.
Yeah, man. Oh, and are you still shooting film? Because I know you mentioned earlier you're shooting film with some of those Fisher guys.
No,
Fishermen.
it's too expensive now.
I know, dude. I bought. I don't know why I did it. I bought like 10 rolls of film from B&H. I bought the rolls and I shot a couple, and it was just like, man, why the fuck am I even doing this? I was like,
I'm just gonna fucking scan it anyway.
I know, and you're gonna scan it, and it's like, yeah, it's like 30. If you send it to one of these labs, it's like $25 a roll
I know.
for processing and scans, and it's crazy, man. Well, Michael, man, I'm glad we finally did this, man. Like I said, I've been a big fan of your work, just because like
Thank you, Alex.
the type of work I love, man, is just like this. There's real people and their real scenarios, and this kind of those people you don't see as much, man. So mad respect.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me on here.
And for people listening, if they want to check out more of your work, where's the best place for them to go?
Go to website michaelcevoli.com or Instagram Michael_Cevoli.
Hell yeah, I'll link it and people go check it out, man.
Don't forget the underscore. The other one's my cousin. So
I got you, man. I double check every time, man. I'll put some respect on your name, man. Right on, dude. All right, I'll cut it there. So there you have it. That was the Michael Cevoli interview. Just want to thank Michael so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. Like I said, I've been a big fan of his work for years. Just incredible work. The stuff he's done documenting the commercial fishing industry in New England is just really powerful and incredible work. So definitely go check out Michael's website at michaelcevoli.com, as well as his Instagram at Michael Cevoli. Lots of amazing work up there, and he's always posting up stuff he's working on, so definitely go give him a follow. And as always, I'll be having weekly podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as the Photo Banter YouTube page. So definitely go click the subscribe button over on the Photo Banter YouTube page. I'll be updating that weekly. And as always, thanks so much for listening, and take care.